Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips, which is sponsored by Wellness Forum Health and the Wellness Forum Institute for Health Studies. So, first of all, those of you who were with us, hundreds and hundreds of you with us this weekend, know that the boot camp was awesome. We had great feedback, and one of the things that people seemed to find really beneficial was how we started each session with getting your head in the right place. I mean, most people know what to do, but many have trouble starting it or even sustaining change once they go down the path of change. So we spent time every night on how to get your head in the right place and make decisions and keep yourself there and develop some momentum until you get to the place where it's almost unthinkable not to do the right things. And I know that for some of you that might seem a little far off, but it can be done and people can do it. I did it. You can do it too. We planned another retreat, another boot camp, if you will, the Food Over Medicine boot camp for April 26 and 27. Now, this one unfortunately isn't free, but it's inexpensive. And we're going to cover things like your immune system, how to get cognitively sharper instead of weaker and less cognitively sharp as you age. All of the impacts on mental health and cognitive health that you should be paying attention to. The psychology, the connection between your psychological state and your physical health and your diet and many other factors. How to build and maintain a healthy microbiome. We're going to talk about coconut oil and popular myths and cooking classes, evaluating supplements, dietary supplements. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this event in April that I did with this boot camp this last weekend. I'm adding topics that you want to talk to. So I just added Lyme disease, shingles vaccines, digestion, bone health, the soy controversy. So it's a Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Again, concentrated time for you to get a lot of questions answered about stuff you want to know. So if you'd like for me to send you a flyer about it, my email address is pampopper@msn.com. Next free tour of our resources, Q&A with me is Saturday, April 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and you can email me if you'd like to participate in that. Remember, Dr. Carol Gifford's workshop on cat and dog vaccines is coming up in May, and that's filling up quickly. So make sure you reserve your spot with that workshop. She's amazing. Some of you had the privilege of hearing from her at our fall conference last year. She will also be appearing at our fall conference this year, which is going to be in person at Wellness Forum Health. Come hell or high water, we're having it. We're going to be together in November. So now let's get on to some content. I wanted to cover some questions that came up in the boot camp. I had like 20 pages of questions. There's only so much time you can spend on Q&A. So I thought what I would do today, I have two things I want to talk about. First one is answering questions we didn't get to at boot camp, and I'll probably do a little bit of this for the next couple of weeks too. And then I want to talk about the power of saying no, and I'll come back to that in a second. So here are some questions we didn't get to. One person wrote and said, a lot of people who are older take multiple drugs for a long time and they cause side effects. Is it ever too late to work on reducing these drugs? Well, the term for it they use now is polypharmacy, and most seniors, particularly people my age, are taking lots of drugs, and they not only have side effects, but they interact with each other in strange ways, and sometimes people aren't aware of the impact. And it's the short answer to the question, it's never too late. I mean, the place to start is you look at all the meds, you look at the interactions and see if some of the problems people have are actually drug interactions. And then you start looking at the symptoms for which they were prescribed. And if there are things like blood pressure and high cholesterol and that sort of thing, a lot of these drugs can be withdrawn and people can solve these problems with diet and lifestyle change. So if a person is willing, if they want to be healthier, and they're willing to do the work of not only changing the way they eat and live their life, but willing to negotiate with their doctors, armed with information that we help them identify. It's never too late. It's never too late. And not only can this reduce medications and side effects and that sort of thing, it can lead to a longer life and a better quality life for the duration of your life. I mean, people think that getting old is not much fun. Well, I'm 67 and I'm undertaking the biggest thing I've ever done in my whole life. Some of you might know that Colin Campbell, the author of China Study, is turned 90 last week, and he sent out birthday thanks for all the birthday wishes and said he was working on his next book. So I don't know about you guys, but I think most people would like to grow old maintaining activities that are interesting and doing things and learning things. I mean, that's the way to live, not to get ready to die as soon as you turn 60 or 65 years old, right? So it's never too late. Another question had to do with hydration, coffee, and tea. And just the real short answer, I won't read the whole email that the person sent me, but coffee is a mild diuretic for most people. It has that effect. So there's no reason to stop drinking it. In fact, a very well referenced article in our library is available to read. And I think you'll agree after reading it, because I looked into this a long time ago, as did one of my colleagues, and she wrote this article. There are a lot of benefits to drinking coffee. I don't think people should take up the habit if they're not drinking coffee, but there are a lot of benefits to drinking coffee. And so if you like it, keep drinking it. If you don't like it, you don't have to drink it. Just drink a little extra water if you do. Herbal teas and non-caffeine containing beverages don't act as diuretics, so no reason to drink more water, but they're not substitutes for water. So I think that answered that question. This is an interesting one, and I think it pertains to a lot of you. Can you recommend anything for someone who's healthy, active, sleeps well, gets out in the sun, eats a whole food, plant-based diet for several years, and still struggles with irregular elimination and bloating? If you're doing everything right, the next place to look is stress levels and psychological state. There is a very direct connection between the brain and the gut, and our language is even filled with things like it was my gut instinct, or I had a gut feeling about it. I'm all choked up. I mean, we really have butterflies in my stomach. So our language even has references to this. So I think I would take a look at psychological reasons and that might be leading to it. And by the way, we'll come to this a little bit later. I'm going to come back to it when we talk about the power of no. It's great to have a wake-up call like bloating and constipation if your psychological state is affecting your physical state, because sometimes the wake-up call or the notification that that's going on is sometimes something much more serious like cancer, right? So better to find out this way and do something about it before it gets worse. And then one of the things somebody asked about, what supplements should you take? And there aren't any supplements everybody should take, with the exception of if you choose to eat a vegan diet like I chose to many years ago, you need a B12 supplement. And having said that, your B12 requirements are only 2.5, 2.4 micrograms per day, and people are taking 500 times or more of that every day. So be careful about dosage. There have been no upper tolerable limits established for B12, so be careful about that. And then last thing was, can you mention some cancer-fighting whole foods? And the answer to that is that there aren't any individual foods that are cancer fighting. There are dietary patterns and patterns of living that are cancer fighting. So we're going to talk about in the next session, which is the April one, we're going to talk about the importance of paying attention to the whole of everything rather than a reductionist approach. And I have some really interesting slide set on this that I think you'll be fascinated by. So plan to be with us in April. One other thing I want to mention, for those of you who signed up for the boot camp, there's a special offer for you if you watch those videos, and by Wednesday of this week, by tomorrow, there's a special offer for you for that boot camp. So don't miss out on that, right? Okay, so now I want to move on to this power of no, and I'll just start by saying that one of the things we talked about in the boot camp is the importance of addressing whole person health. You have to get a lot of things right. Mindset, as I mentioned earlier, diet, exercise, sleep, stress. Some of you who have memberships with Wellness Forum that include the book discussions might remember just a couple of months ago, we talked about Gabor Mate's book, The Myth of Normal, in which he discusses the connection between emotional, mental state and physical health, which leads me to what I want to share with you. So over the weekend, I read an article that reminded me about this. It was titled The Power of Saying No in Medicine. It was written by a doctor who reached burnout, was forced to change her ways because she just hit a wall. She had to take a break from practicing medicine to heal herself and examine her approach to life that led to this entire situation. And she reports that she returned to work with a new perspective and describes how this impacted her practice. But learning how to say no can bring about positive changes outside of one's job as well. And I'm going to read just a short excerpt of this article, and then I have some pretty important commentary about it at the end. She writes, I discovered the power of saying no is not just about reclaiming personal time, but also about fostering healthier relationships. Learning to say no is a journey towards self discovery and self preservation. It involves introspection, understanding your values, and recognizing your limits. The ability to articulate a firm no is, in essence, an expression of self love. As I embraced the concept of saying no, I found that it not only reduced my stress levels, but also contributed to a positive shift in my overall well being. The energy I once expended on overcommitting to tasks and obligations has now been redirected toward activities that truly matter to me. I've cultivated a greater sense of balance in my life, allowing for both personal and professional fulfillment. It's crucial to understand that saying no is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it's a demonstration of strength and self awareness. Setting boundaries is an essential component of maintaining mental and emotional health. When we say yes to everything, we inadvertently compromise our well being, spreading ourselves thin and risking burnout. If you, like many, are so used to being a people pleaser at the expense of your sanity, I empathize with you, as I know it's not easy to turn that constant yes into a no. However, trust me, it gets easier over time. I encourage you to dig deep into the root causes of why you struggle to say no and to address those issues. No is a clear and straightforward way to communicate limits and boundaries. It leaves little room for misunderstanding or ambiguity, ensuring that your message is easily understood. In conclusion, the power of saying no extends far beyond a simple two-letter word. It's a transformative tool that allows you to reclaim your time, set boundaries, and prioritize what truly matters. Saying no is an empowering act that fosters a healthier and more intentional way of living. So embrace the liberating strength of no and watch as it becomes a guiding force in creating a life that aligns with your truest self. So I think this excerpt is excellent, and it brings me back to Matei's book. Toward the end, he encourages readers to ask several questions, but I think the two which spoke to me most were, what are you saying yes to that you should be saying no to? And what are you saying no to that you should be saying yes to? The answers to these questions are really important, and they do affect not only your mental health, but your physical health. Often people are saying yes to so many things that they don't want to do that they end up saying no to the time and energy that it takes to pay attention to building and maintaining a healthy body. And I have to speak from personal experience here. It's not been easy for me to sort all this out. I mean, I like making people happy, and I adopted some really strong people pleasing skills early in my adult life that took a long time to leave behind. The interesting thing I can share with you about shedding this pernicious habit of trying to make everybody happy all the time is that after the stress that's always part of change and the response from people who are disappointed because they're used to being able to count on you for everything and anything, what happens is that you end up, and I ended up, happier and healthier and more productive and with a whole lot more energy to put into helping even more people in more important ways. So I think it's worth it to examine, what are you saying yes to that you should be saying no to? And conversely, what are you saying no to that you should be saying yes to? You know, we only get one life on this planet. It's not a dress rehearsal, so we need to make the most of it. And time is precious, life is precious. Don't spend it doing things you don't want to do or engaging in activities that aren't in your best interest. And you certainly don't want to be looking back at the end of your life saying, I wish I had done, I wish I had said. I wish I had, been different about things, right? So anyway, I hope that helps. It's a continuous journey. I highly recommend reading that book, by the way. I thought our discussions about it were great. I love our book discussions, by the way. I think they're all great. But when I read the chapter about the connection between personality types and rheumatoid arthritis, I was pretty convinced that Mate must have interviewed my mother before she died, because it was just the story of her life right there. So I think it's a great book. I think you'll see a lot of yourself in that book and get a lot of inspiration to make important changes. So anyhow, that's it for today. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you on Thursday with more news.